have to say, I said it'd end up like this. On Tuesday night, when I spoke about Tony Abbott's speech on immigration, I took the time to take you through the detail because I said by the next day, all the usual suspects would be out in the media giving it a whack, while ordinary people like you, stuck in traffic or struggling to get into the housing market, would see some value in what he had to say. At the very least, I said people want the debate. So here we are, a couple of days on, and there's been a pile-on from Liberal ministers scared of a policy debate that's in Australia's national interest. Funny, Coalition MPs can brief and background about the details surrounding Barnaby Joyce's bedroom, but they want to shut down a former Prime Minister who's trying to talk about ideas. That's not the Liberal Party I used to know. As a backbencher, Abbott has every right to speak out on important issues. As a former PM who won the election that gave them all their jobs, I'd argue he's got a duty to debate the issues the Australian people are talking about, but not the Parliament. The fact that they can't see this inside the Liberal Party's Canberra bubble says everything about why supporters are upset, why the polls week in, week out are pointing to a shortened landslide, and why the government is in trouble. Right across the country, on local radio, talkback, online and letters to the editor, Australians are hungry for a national debate about the things that matter to them. The rate of immigration, energy prices, safety in our communities, housing and the cost of living. On Tuesday, Abbott's speech was a step in the right direction towards answering people's concerns, of listening. He didn't attack migrants, how could he? He's a migrant himself. He just said that the current immigration rate, double this decade on last decade, was too high and should be scaled back until infrastructure, housing and integration can catch up. Now, the Turnbull government can hardly rest on its laurels. I can't find a serious commentator that says it's kicking goals, so I'm stumped as to why it thinks it's got all the right answers on everything. At the very least, they should look at Abbott's form. He didn't win 25 seats off Labor by agreeing with them or just echoing the politically correct line of the moment. He said that illegal boats could, should and would be stopped. He said that the carbon tax was socialism masquerading as environmentalism, and you, the voters, agreed with him. So when he says that outside Canberra, people are worried that very high immigration is helping to keep wages down and put house prices up, I reckon he's worth listening to. Do you know what? That's not the view of the geniuses in government. The acting Prime Minister, Matthias Cormann, said that Abbott was wrong and he shouldn't disagree with Treasury. Trade Minister Steve Ciobo said that Abbott's thinking was lazy and highly inaccurate. I hope he's read the speech because I tell you what, you'd hardly ever call Abbott lazy or intellectually sloppy. Even Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton said, I'm sure through gritted teeth, that current immigration numbers are about right, although he's been at pains today to stress that Abbott was a great Prime Minister. Last week on Sydney radio, I have to say, he was more in line with Abbott. And of course there was Scott Morrison, who made the extraordinary claim that there'd never been any discussion about lowering immigration rates while Abbott was PM. Now, I'm not going to breach confidences about the when and the wheres and the who's and the what's, but I was in the Abbott government when it was discussed. I was in the room. Abbott disagreed very strongly with the Treasury line and Morrison demurred. Now, he must have amnesia on this, or perhaps he's just telling fibs to score a cheap point. Abbott said today that Scott Morrison should have the gumption to think for himself rather than just be captured by public servants. Otherwise, what's the point of having a minister if we leave the bureaucrats to actually run the country? Right now, the coalition is like a dog scared of its own tail. It's not listening to the people that put them into office. It's frightened of debate. Most of all, it's lacking the courage necessary to take the fight up to Labor. When the bloke that won them government in a landslide has something to say, I reckon when you're 27 news polls behind, it'd probably be smart to at least listen.